Weird, curly trees surrounded her as Nikki woke up. She had been sent to yet another area. The ground was weirdly colored in a pale gray, but the air was crisp and fresh. Finally, a lighter part of my journey, Nikki thought as she went ahead and started walking around through this weird, deformed forest. After only a few seconds of walking, Nikki saw a large fence appearing in front of her, and behind it something that looked like a human village. Humans? Appearing in her dreams? No, that couldn't be. Curious, she went through an opening in the fence and walked through the village for a bit. Every house looked the same, every stone, even the ground was flat and smooth everywhere. It almost seemed like an abandoned camp somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But no, there were creatures here, maybe even humans. Nikki went straight towards the first person she saw and tried to speak with him, but it only replied with a metallic sound. And resignated, Nikki realized that these creatures weren't people after all. Why hadn't she ever dreamt of people? She had been such a social person for all of her life, yet she had never seen a human before in one of her dreams. Aimlessly wandering through the village, she noticed that there were a lot more houses than there were creatures to live in them. She tried talking to another one of them, and much to her surprise, it sent her onto a small, stony island. There were more of these metallic people here, but the place didn't seem any lighter than the rotten village Nikki had just left. It seemed like a place that has been given up, abandoned by most people who had lived here. Most of them had moved on, but why did they leave some behind? The creatures who hadn't left, they seemed sad, and their responses, even though they only let out metallic noises, seemed depressed, hopeless. As if they didn't know why they were even pressing on anymore. So much sadness surrounded the whole place. It dragged Nikki in, and soon she felt that she would have to leave this place, for else the depression would take over her. Nikki found herself in yet another forest, but this one wasn't dark and filled with mist like the other ones. It was lighter, and even though the soil was brown and muddy, this place at least didn't have the depressing feeling to it that has almost brought Nikki down while she had been in the village. She moved on, wanting to finally leave this place, leave her dreams. She had seen enough for tonight. Through the forest, pressing on, there would be a way out, Nikki knew. There had to be. But then, why hadn't the creatures just escaped? Why did they still stay behind in their destroyed, devastated village? Nikki did something she had never done in her dreams before. She started to feel doubtful. Doubtful about her own intentions, about the correctness of her beliefs. How could she be so sure that there would be an exit? She had never been here before. Maybe she should just sit down and give up, and let the darkness surround her once again. She would wake up sooner or later anyways. It was uninvitable. But no, there was something. Some kind of force calling her deeper into the forest. And unable to resist this call, Nikki stood up again and continued. After a while, she saw a staircase in the distance. It looked like it leaded to some kind of tomb, and although Nikki's mind told her that this could never be an exit, She felt that she was being called from down there. And whatever it was, she needed to see it. A giant building of stone. Once it had surely been several meters high, but now a few broken stones were all that was left of it. It had fallen, become a ruin. And at the end of the corridor in front of her stood a giant monument, red, glowing out of the thick darkness that had laid itself over the ruins of the once majestic temple. Yes, this had been a temple. As Nikki passed by the remaining stone walls, she saw unknown runes carved into the stone. It seemed like they were telling stories about ancient gods, about towns and heroes. A man who looked kind of like a Neanderthal approached her, and afraid, Nikki stepped backwards a bit. But the human didn't come any closer, instead muttered the numbers 4, 5, 3, 5, 4. Jesus. Then, as quickly as he had appeared, he vanished. Confused, Nikki went back to see if there was another way out of here. She had realized that it was not the stone creature who had called her, but something different. Something behind, no, under the glowing red stone monument. With surprising ease, Nikki found a small hole in one of the walls, and behind it a passageway that leads to yet another staircase, and another Neanderthal, who told her a number of his own. 67186. Nikki continued on through the small sacred passageway, even more unsure what was in front of her than before. More people and more numbers for Nikki to remember, but of course she couldn't remember all of them, and she didn't have anything to write them down on, so they simply passed her mind and left at the same moment. More large stone walls, and more of these monuments that were everywhere. Nikki didn't know what to do, didn't know where to go. She had never been to such a place. But the voice was still calling her. Yes, it came from somewhere in between those monuments. A blue octopus-like thingy with a giant eye. This was the source of the power. And without giving it a second thought, Nikki stepped towards it. And it spewed out a card. A slimy blue card. It had a blue background. It was completely blue, save for 2 little words written in black on them. Written in black on it. Boyu, Boyu. Confused, Nikki picked up the card. But nothing happened. She felt that sensation. Well, at least a hint of this sensation. A tingling feeling somewhere inside of her, but nothing happened. She hadn't changed. What was this? Nothing had happened. Confused, Nikki put in the card again and decided to not waste a second thought about it. But how would she come out of this giant maze now? She had nowhere to go, and she couldn't just go back. There was no exit but the way she had came from. But no, even there was no exit. The place she had awakened in, the place that the metallic creatures had brought her to, it was a one-way road. She couldn't go back. Did that mean she was trapped here? Confused and now also scared, Nikki tried to wander through the forest, and she saw, out of nowhere, volcanoes grouped in a large circle. What were they doing here in the middle of the forest? There was water here too. She hadn't noticed it before, but now it was very clear. Maybe it was becoming lighter. Yes, at the shore. At the end of the horizon, she could see the sun rising. And as the first ray of light struck her eyes, Nikki woke up again. As she woke up, Nikki noticed that she apparently had turned around in bed. While she had been sleeping, her feet were lying on her pillow and her head was on the other side of the bed. Confused, she stood up and tried to remember her dream. But no, she didn't even have to try. It came back to her almost immediately. Letting out a long sigh, Nikki sat down at her desk in order to arrange her thoughts again. Nikki wasn't sure what to think of her dreams, but she was sure that tonight she wouldn't be able to sleep at all again. Because the more she thought about this village, this temple too, they both had been struck by something so terrible, something so devastating. Only a few people who had lived in these places had survived. The more the image of this village that had been burned into her mind, started to change. She tried to get rid of these thoughts, but they came back every time, and after a while, the devastated village didn't look like a rescue camp anymore. It looked exactly like the view she had of her village when she sat on the bank in the park. And the temple she had seen, the ruins of this temple, in front of her inner eye, they slowly rebuilt themselves into the skyscraper Nikki called her home.